Bills Mafia. Tonight on the Air Raid Hour post-game show, we are diving deep into all things Bills, Ravens. We've got the latest injury updates, major takeaways, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. This is a breakdown you won't want to miss. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. Let's get right to it in the comment section here. Right, RJ Melville comes in and says, LFG, we finally won one of these games of the year. And Dave, if 1 to 2 plays went another way, this show could have had an entirely different vibe right now. Instead, we are celebrating a Victory Monday, one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history. The Buffalo Bills becoming the first team to ever erase a 15-point deficit in the final 5 minutes and win in regulation. In Bills lore, this likely goes down right behind the comeback game in the 94 wild card. But still, the Ravens had a 99.1% win probability with about 5 minutes remaining in this game. The Buffalo Bills erased that. Teams with 40-plus points, 235-plus rushing yards in a game were 277-0 all-time heading into last night. They are now 277-1. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty details of this evening and talk about our one big thing and talk about what we really liked and what we didn't like, just walk us through your emotions last night as you were watching that game, sort of from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, the emotions, it was kind of a roller coaster, right? The Bills march down and score pretty easily on that first drive, and you're thinking, okay, like, this team's going to be able to move the ball tonight. They hold the Ravens to that field goal early, and they come right back, and you're like, wow, this team could be ready to go up 14-3. And instead, they have those questionable plays. The game flips on its head, and things kind of somewhat get out of control a bit. All the failed 2-point conversions and some of those things. It just it was negative for most of the game, I would say, my emotions. But the funny thing is, at the end, as the Bills were starting to kind of make that comeback, I was like shaking kind of, which is kind of whatever, you do that. But it was one of those feelings I had where it was like the shaking and the nervousness was like akin to a playoff game and not like week 1 of the regular season. So obviously, like, in my body, I felt how crazy this game was. The Ravens, obviously being the opponent, brings like a different level of intensity to it because of the whole like sort of MVP debate, and the Bills beating the Ravens in the playoffs a year ago. But man, like, the ups and downs. And as I think someone said in the comments section, I think it was Jared K who said, had a hard time like settling down after that and going to sleep. And like, same for me. Like, I was wiped out, but It took me a while to fall asleep after
I
that
think I went to bed around midnight, which that's the luxury for me. That's like 3 a.m. your guys' time. But then I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to work. So I got about maybe 5 hours of sleep. So yeah, it was crazy. It's hard. Like, I just wanted to, I should have been more productive in the time between the game ended and the time between the time I went to bed. Cause again, like 3 a.m. your time, I should have been like doing my show notes. I should have been preparing, like, all those different things. But instead I was just like watching highlights of the game back, just retweeting anything and everything on Twitter, just having a ball, just sitting on my phone because everyone else in my household was asleep. So definitely did not go to bed at the time that was appropriate. We have a comment here from the Leper King, says that was possibly the best Bills game I've ever witnessed. Insane. I think for me, I'm going to say the Patriots wild card game is ahead of it, only because it was way less stressful. And I got to enjoy that one from start to finish, not just at the end. But it's certainly up there for me. And again, frame of reference, I was 4 years old during the original comeback game with Frank Reich. I missed most of the Jim Kelly years as I was, in my adolescence. So I'm really, my formative Bills year started with JP Losman, Drew Bledsoe. So that's the frame of reference that I'm working with here. So I'm sure some older fans out there maybe have some better memories than I do. But to me, when the Bills first arrived kind of on the scene with that Cowboys Thanksgiving, the wild card New England game, and those are the top three, in my opinion, at least for me right now in this Josh Allen era.
Yeah, those are great polls. The wild card game against the Patriots was something else. I think that I might even go back to, it wasn't necessarily like a ton of flashy plays in the game, but the Bills beating the Ravens in the divisional round, 4 or 5 years ago with the Taron Johnson pick six. As far as that game from the Josh Allen era, and there's so many really, but if you kind of call it some of those, yeah, it's up there. It's certainly top 5 easily, I would say, in the Josh Allen era.
Some other things to maybe get to before we get to our one big thing. Everyone else in the AFC East is 0-1. Jets lost, Dolphins lost in embarrassing fashion. Patriots lost, and the Chiefs and the Ravens are 0-1. We are the Browns not being stupid and just keeping Dustin Hopkins as their kicker away from having the Bengals being 0-1 as well, and the Bills really being in the hot seat of the AFC. If you think the Bengals are a true competitor, I personally don't, but we'll see, right? Just an absolutely perfect weekend for the Buffalo Bills, the way it's shaped out. Again, it's week 1. Things can change the snap of a finger or easily over the course of the next month, but you couldn't have asked for a better start week 1 in terms of who lost and the Bills winning.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'll save some of this for the our segment later on when we kind of take a look around the NFL. But you look at two of the three, really, you probably figured the Steelers were going to beat the Jets, although the Jets with Justin Fields look pretty good. But the Dolphins, going in, you probably figured they probably should have beaten the Colts on paper. They didn't. They got worked. And then the Raiders, a question mark of what they were going to be this year, because new coaching staff, new quarterback, new star running back with Genty. But the Raiders, obviously, I think are a team that looks to be improved just from week 1. You got Pete Carroll now in there. You got Geno Smith. So they should certainly be improved. And they took care of a Patriots team that really couldn't find anything on offense with Drake May against that Raiders defense. So, around the AFC East anyway, it looked pretty promising for the Bills. And it looked like the Jets were really the best team other than the Bills that played in the AFC East.
Some quick injury updates from what I saw. Clean game. Sean McDermott said only minor injuries that they'll have updates for on Wednesday. Sean McDermott said Trey White is still wait and see. We'll talk about Dorian Strong and his performance in the game a little bit later. And then Sean McDermott also said today, Matt Prater is the kicker for the finger quotes foreseeable future. But when healthy, Tyler Bass is the guy. And I want to take a moment here before we get to our one big thing to talk about Matt Prater a little bit, because listen, sometimes, right? We're on the Cover One Sports Network. This is a network that is based in film and analytics, and we bring a little bit more of maybe a fan perspective to it. There's a little bit of unreasonableness to this take that I'm about to throw out there, right? If Tyler Bass was the kicker last night, my heart rate would have been 215. It would have been through the roof. And maybe it's just it's a kicker we signed off the street on Thursday. There are no expectations. Maybe that played into it a little bit. But to be honest with you, just knowing Matt Prater and knowing his history in this league and seeing the way he still booted the football last year and seeing the way he booted the football yesterday, reasonable or unreasonable, I felt better knowing Matt Prater was our kicker last night than the guy we've had for the last half decade in Tyler Bass. I did.
And the thing with this kicking situation too is it's you aren't a team that's kind of oh, we're going to kind of build up this kicker over the next couple, you look around the league, it's not like a Brandon Aubrey where it's we kind of bring this guy along, or a Bates where we bring this guy along for the Lions. It's you're going for the Super Bowl this year, and to have Prater for like a stopgap or even 1 year is not really going to throw a wrench in any kind of long-term plans from a kicker personnel standpoint, right, for this team. So it basically gives Bass a longer runway to kind of get fully healthy. But it also may end up being a kind of interesting decision, a dilemma at some point for Sean McDermott. Bass, at this stage in his career, does have the bigger leg. And as Claude kind of alludes to here, his leg isn't as strong.
I disagree with that a little bit. I mean, the guy was 6 for 6 last year on field goals. He was 8 for 8 in extra points. He was perfect last night on his field goals and his extra points. That's what scares me the most about Tyler Bass, is giving up those 1 points with the 5-6 XPs he missed last year. Like, the guy couldn't make an extra point. But Matt Prater, his long last year was 57. The guy historically has one of the biggest legs in the history of the game.
No, I agree.
He's got it.
Historically, he does have a big leg, but I would say right now Bass can probably go a bit longer than Prater. But again, like we said in the pregame, you don't want things to come down to a 57, 59, yard field goal if you're the Bills, right? In those situations, down and distance wise, you're probably going to go for it in most cases anyway. So his kicks look smooth. There was no wobbliness to him. There was no, hook, slice, whatever. The biggest issue was that near block at the end, right? But that wasn't Matt Prater's fault, obviously. So confidence for sure in him to kind of either get the job done this year for the whole year, or at least until Tyler Bass comes back.
Andy S comes in and says, I'm very happy we found Prater. Did they sign him to the 53 yet? If he's still practice squad, will he get poached by someone? Sean McDermott sounded pretty comfortable and confident speaking today, like Matt Prater is our kicker for the long term. But I brought this up yesterday before the game. Like, you saw Cleveland's kicker yesterday absolutely crap the bed, cost them the game, missed an extra point, missed a chip shot field goal. They lost by 1 point? Like, absolutely pathetic performance from that kicker. He's going to get cut today or tomorrow. You look at San Francisco, it might be the end for Jake Moody there. He's kind of on that Tyler Bass. He's been on that Tyler Bass sort of yips train for 2 years now, and Kyle Shanahan has stuck with him. And I think Jake Moody's future in San Francisco is now pretty much in doubt as well. So if you're Cleveland, if you're San Francisco, what's to stop you from picking up the phone, calling Matt Prater and saying, hey, do you want to go kick in Buffalo for 4 more weeks, and then be on the streets? Or do you want to come kick for us for the rest of the year? Sean McDermott sounded pretty confident. I'm sure maybe them and Matt Prater have had conversations behind, closed doors, but I think there's a possibility we could lose him, but in all likelihood, he signs to the 53-man roster tomorrow and is our kicker for at least the next 3 weeks. But hopefully we do not lose him. All right. So before we get into our one big thing, a quick word here from our sponsor.
Picasso's Pizza. To the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's. We are Buffalo Pizza. Shipping both local and nationwide. Order online today at Picasso'sPizza.net.
Ladies and gentlemen, our feature sponsor is Picasso'sPizza.net. With 4 convenient locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell, Picasso's Pizza has been serving Buffalo's best pizza since 1980. Whether you are local or across the country, you can enjoy their delicious pizza delivered fresh to your door. Visit Picasso'sPizza.net to place your order today. Once again, that is Picasso'sPizza.net. All right, Dave, as we enter the season now, for people who maybe haven't seen this show before or know what we're all about, you will notice that there is a little ticker at the bottom of the screen, and this is sort of the order we are going to be going in this evening. And we always like to, after we have this little, after we have the start of the show banter, which went a little bit longer than usual today at 15 minutes, but we usually like to get into our one big thing. And that's the challenge, because both me and you, and I'm sure a lot of people in the comment section, we watch these games and we just have a million things, and we want to go over everything. We want to talk about everything. We want to sit here for 2 hours and we want to dissect this game from start to finish. And we want to talk about every single little thing. So we challenge ourselves at the beginning of every show. what is the one big thing, the one big takeaway that we have from this football game? And I told you I'd let you do the honors and go first, so you can be Mr. Positivity, and then I will take the defense with my one big thing when it's my turn. But Dave, you got the mic here. What is your one big thing for this football game?
Yeah, the one big thing for me, it's going to center around Josh Allen, the MVP from 2024, and putting his stamp on the early MVP odds in 2025 to put him kind of at the top of the list. That fourth quarter, 251 passing yards, 2 total touchdowns, and just really opening it up from an air yards perspective, 4 more air yards per pass in the fourth quarter than all the other quarters for him last night, and really just exemplifying what it was and what it is for him to be the MVP and the leader of this team, and bringing this team back from 15 points down with 4 minutes to go in the game. So for me, it's Josh Allen. He seems poised yet again to have another monster year ahead. This was against a team that has multiple All-Pros on that defense, a team that from a DVOA standpoint was the number 4 DVOA defense a year ago, or number 6. I can't remember. Sorry if I'm missing that, but it's either 4 or 6. And he just showed up in the biggest moments when he needed to. No turnovers. And at the end of the day, this is like a one big thing that should kind of then extrapolate hopefully into the rest of this season for Josh Allen and what this team wants to do. And the way that they were able to come back and win last night with Josh Allen at the helm, distributing the ball to his new targets. Palmer and Coleman had a huge game. So for me, the one big thing is Josh Allen and what he could do on that field in the fourth quarter. And not just that from what he did from an execution standpoint, but the demeanor as well, calmness. Never felt like he was not in control. And that's something that obviously we've seen of him over the last couple years. But certainly an area where he has grown, I would say, from his first, 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 years to his last 3 or so years. The calmness and the limiting of the bad decisions and the turnovers, it all culminated there for him in the fourth quarter. So for me, it's Josh Allen putting a stamp on being the early season MVP favorite. Obviously, it's only been 1 game.
Yeah, because I put this out on social media when the Buffalo Bills got down 2 scores. I was like, does Josh Allen press here? Does Josh Allen try to throw the ball downfield? Does Josh Allen get too aggressive? Does Josh Allen turn the ball over? I think we're past that day and age where like Josh Allen gets rattled by stuff like this. We saw last year against St. Louis, right? We saw last year him keep his cool and keep the ball moving against Detroit. Like, this isn't a guy like we saw in the home opener against the Jets 2 years ago where you get down and he's throwing 3 picks. Like, that's just not who he is anymore. The guy's got literal ice water running through his veins. I knew you were going to bring up Josh Allen here, so I went through and I accumulated all the list of things that he did last night. More passing yards in the fourth quarter than 21 other quarterbacks had in their entire games last week. Josh Allen on 3rd and 4th down was 9 of 10 for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. Josh Allen had the 4th most fourth quarter passing yards ever, the most fourth quarter passing yards ever for a quarterback in a win, because you have to think only 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks in fourth quarter passing yards in an individual game came in wins, because quarterbacks tossing the ball all over the place in the fourth quarter are usually behind and trying to come back, right? Only 2 of those quarterbacks have ever won. Josh Allen, first player ever with 250 plus passing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in a quarter. Josh Allen, 97th percentile EPA per play last night versus what, as you mentioned last year, was a top 5 defense, just absolute alien level play. He's on pace this year for 68 touchdowns. Is he going to get there? No. But I talked last week in our expectation show. I think he's going to be pushing closer to 50 than he is trying to scrape another 40 touchdown season out again. And right now he's four touchdowns out of 50 there. And I started a countdown tracker on social media. And I every time Josh Allen throws a touchdown or runs a touchdown or catches a touchdown or pick sixes at this rate, the way he scores touchdowns, I'm going to have a nice little individual picture on social media as I go through the countdown tracker. So Josh Allen, just words cannot describe like what we got to witness last night.
Yeah, I mean, dead on. And like, I think for this to happen in week 1 as well, like in the early season, it's like hopefully just a huge momentum boost, right? For him now going into this next stretch of games, as if he didn't necessarily need a momentum boost because he always plays well, right? It's like very rarely where he has a really truly bad game, but man, from a momentum standpoint, confidence standpoint, this is gonna translate into the next few games.
All right, I'm going to bring us back down to earth a little bit with my one big thing. I decided I would take the sort of negative take this week because obviously we got to talk a little bit about the defense who did rebound at the end, and we will give them their kudos for their last 3 drives when we get to talking about the defense towards the end of the show. But it's a long season. It was the most unicorn of unicorn opponents that you could possibly face in week 1. But when your head coach comes from a defensive background, when 5 of your last 6 premium draft picks have come on the defensive side of the ball, when you have handed out 6 big money contract extensions, Groot, Oliver, Milano, Bernard, Johnson, and Benford over the past, 3 to 4 years, and your marquee free agent this year, Joey Bosa, was on the defensive side of the ball, it is beyond disappointing for them to look so utterly lost and unprepared out there to start this football game. I mean, this was the last team you played. They weren't doing anything different. I know they had Zay Flowers. They didn't have Zay Flowers in that game against you in January, but they acted like this was Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson's first game together, and they had no film on them. They were without Patrick Ricard, and they ran the ball all over us. They were without Isaiah Likely, and they ran the ball all over us. Lamar Jackson was 98th percentile in EPA per play. They scored on what? It was either the first 7 drives or 7 of their first 8. One of the two.
First 5, 7 of the first 8. Yeah.
Disgusting. They had 410 yards of offense and 40 points on those first 8 drives. Henry had 189 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and averaged 9.4 yards per carry. Lamar completed all but 4 of his passes last night for 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 11.7 yards per carry and had a touchdown. Zay Flowers caught 7 catches for 143 yards and a touchdown. I don't think there was a cornerback within 5 feet of him once when he caught a football. Like, that was an utterly pathetic performance for outside of the first drive and the last 3 drives. It was an all-time bad performance from a team that has spent 2 off seasons retooling this defense, from a team that has seen this opponent twice already last year, and it's the same freaking team. That was an inexcusable performance from the Buffalo Bills defense last night. And I get that they saved it at the end and Josh Allen came in so we can have a lot more of a fun conversation tonight, but that needs to be corrected quick. And I'm not talking like you're going to face a Jets team next week that's going to do some very similar things in terms of gashing you on the ground and gashing you in the misdirection game, gashing you in the screen game with a mobile quarterback. They got to figure it out quick.
They do need to figure it out quick. And, I was seeing some people online talking about like, I'm going to blame Joe Brady just as much as I'm going to blame Bobby Babbitt for like, what were you watching? If you're like, the defense was absolutely atrocious until they did get those 3. They had those 3 really critical stops at the end, but man, you gave up 230 plus rushing yards. You mentioned Derrick Henry, 169 on the ground and really untouched on both of his touchdowns. Lamar escaping multiple kind of situations, and that one killer where he like escaped from like 15 yards in the backfield, right? So you had that. And then you just had the continued struggles as well, which carried over from a year ago on third down defense. The Ravens were 6 for 11 on third down. At one point, they were 6 for 9 on third down until those last 2 stops that the Bills forced the Ravens to punt. So it's a problem. I think that in a way, I'll try to take a silver lining here and say, like, getting these reps, especially for guys like Bishop and Rapp early in the season, it's learning by fire, and there's going to be a lot to learn from. And I think in a way, like, a couple people made the comment. It's like it's a perfect situation for Sean McDermott because he won the game. They won the game, but he still got a lot to be mad about from a coaching perspective. So he can go back this week and like really hone it in and say like, look, we were lucky to win that game, but like we have a lot of work to do. I just don't want it to be a Groundhog Day situation where it's like this happens again. You know, we say the same thing year after year when it comes down to some of the biggest games, and this team can't really perform on defense. It felt to me like a playoff defensive performance, if that makes sense, right? Where the team just really doesn't show up outside of one or two drives, and they kind of keep your hopes up. And as well, last year this team really relied on turnovers to mask some of the deficiencies, especially on the third down defense. And for a vast majority of the night, they didn't take the ball away, right? As opposed to what they did in the game in January against this team until they got the Derrick Henry fumble, which was the only turnover of the game. So it worries me again. And we said in the prediction show, like, is this team going to have as many turnovers as they did a year ago? No, they're not. Like, and they got the one, which was obviously critical for the win, but I am worried that the turnover well will run a little drier this year, and they'll have to come back to some more fundamental things to fix this defense.
No bones about it comes in and says, no offense, other than Baltimore, no one is even close to what the Ravens are. The defense will be fine. And someone else comes in and says, the Ravens are a unicorn offense. What defense is capable of stopping them? I don't think that's the point at this point. Like, just look at this defense the past calendar year. Every single time they go up against a top-notch offense, and kudos to Mike Bunt for pointing this out. We go up against Sean McVay and the Rams, 40 burger on us. Josh Allen has to just be a superhuman to keep us in that game. Couldn't do it at the end, right? Ran out of time. Detroit, Josh Allen did a great job getting us out to a huge lead. The defense turned into an absolute sieve. They couldn't handle Ben Johnson. We get to the playoffs, right? The Buffalo Bills did just enough to squeak out a win against the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs, but that offense really came on after some early turnovers, whereas the Buffalo Bills were just literally trying to run out the clock. And luckily the clock ran out and the Bills won that game. But then you get the Chiefs, who were just a mediocre offense all year last year. They weren't good. And Patrick Mahomes goes out and becomes vintage Patrick Mahomes just against the Buffalo Bills. Then he went back to being like the next week. He went back to 2 weeks later. He went back to being the Patrick Mahomes he was all season, and they lost in the Super Bowl big to the Eagles. Like, against big-time offensive coordinators, against big-time offenses, which is who you are going to face if you want to get to your ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. This team has come up so short defensively, where Josh Allen has come up so large, and it's really disappointing. Like, again, I'm not forecasting how the rest of the year is going to go. I'm not making any predictions about how the rest of the year is going to go. I'm not saying anyone should be fired. I'm just saying, like, as a fan, even as an analyst of the game, that's effing disappointing, right? Like, how can you not just be like, there are some people who are just gonna be like, well, we won, we learned our lesson, we'll move on. Like, no, like, this is going to stick with me. Like, I'm going to feel this like uneasiness for 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. Like, it's going to take a while for this defense to earn my trust.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, I'll just make the point again. They masked a lot of deficiencies last year by creating takeaways, right? It's from a statistical standpoint, yardage wise, third down defense. They were not a great defense a year ago, other than turnover margin, where they were number 1 in the NFL, and they forced the second most turnovers in the NFL, as we have said at length. So if that dries out and you're not able to force the turnovers, this defense looks incredibly average and potentially even below average. So let's see how it goes, right? But yeah, I agree with the uneasy feeling.
And there are some positives, and we will get to those positives when we get to the defensive segment. But first, let's talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills. Oops, wrong ticker there. Let's talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills offense, right? Obviously, we talked all about Josh Allen at the start of the show in our one big thing. So we're going to skip past Josh, since we had that conversation already, and talk about the rest of the offense. As always, we will start after a win. We start with our positive takeaways. So let's start with the positive takeaways from the Buffalo Bills offense in the comment section. Let us know what your positive takeaways were for the offense outside of Josh Allen, because we already had that conversation. And Dave, I'll start with you. Where do you want to start about this conversation about the offense last night?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can start with either Keon Coleman or James Cook. That's where I would want to start. So I'm going to start with James Cook just because he is the fresh off the contract extension. I thought his vision looked really good last night. There were a couple play calls where, obviously it didn't really work in his favor, some of those second and shorts. But I really thought James Cook proved last night why he earned that contract extension. Not just from him running the ball, because if you look at just the box score statistics for him from a rushing standpoint, it doesn't look super efficient, right? 3.4 yards per carry, but there were a couple good runs mixed in there, along of 11. And then in the passing game, 5 catches for 58 yards, including the one that nearly went for a touchdown near the end. And he was just reliable all night. When they brought in Ray Davis, he had 2 touches. He didn't look great. Ty Johnson kind of did his thing, but it really showed to me last night the firepower that the Bills are going to need to have. It looks like in situations this year on offense, if that defense can't hold up, and James Cook to me really shined over 100 all-purpose yards for him. And I'll let you probably take Keon Coleman next. Where you're going.
we can talk Keon in a moment, but I was having this conversation with Nick Geary on X. He was like, talking about how the receivers weren't separating and this or that. And I'm just like, this roster construction is fine if our defense has a pulse. Because I was worried about, I worry about our wide receiver separation as well. But then I watched this team run this offense in the second half, and I'm like, oh, okay. Keon's giving me a little bit more than I thought, right? Keon's taking me back to like how I felt about him in like his first 4, 5, 6 weeks and during his breakout at Florida State, when I thought there's no way this wide receiver will be on the board when we pick at 25, 26, 27, 30, whatever. He was looking good. Josh Palmer, right, was looking really good. And we'll talk about those two guys. So to me, what I liked about this offense too was I think we've settled into a rotation almost too, which if this team stays healthy, it's Keon and it's Palmer. It is Shakir. Those are your big 3 at receiver. It's Dalton Kincaid at tight end. And then sort of like your changeups are, let's get the ball into James Cook's hand in the receiving game. Let's get the ball into Dawson Knox's hand. Let's get the ball into Ty Johnson's hand. So the big 4 or 5, let's go 5 because Cook is a big one, right? Coleman, Palmer, Shakir, Cook, Coleman. Those are your big 5. Those are the 5 guys you're going to funnel this offense through. Ty Johnson, Dawson Knox are some nice auxiliaries, and then there's everybody else. And I'm honestly going to say, this is a weird analogy, right? But like, I'm watching I live in Arizona. I'm an Arizona Diamondbacks fan. And the Diamondbacks are 71-72 right now. They're like 5 games out of the wild card. They're having an abysmal year compared to the expectations at the start of the year. And the reason why is they have blown more leads than any team in baseball this year, like 30-something leads. They've had leads in 30 games and blown them. And if they would have just won half of those games, they'd be in the playoffs right now. The reason why is their bullpen sucks. And it's more than just the injuries that they faced this year. It's at the beginning of the year, there were no defined roles in that bullpen. Nobody knew who the setup guy was. Nobody knew who the closer was. They were just always riding hot hands and trying different people every week. And there was no consistency. There was no structure. I think the Buffalo Bills offense this year is going to have consistency and it's going to have structure. Everyone knows Keon's going to be the dude. Palmer's going to be the dude. Kincaid's going to be the dude. Cook's going to be the dude. Who did I miss there? Kincaid. Those are going to be the dudes. And with that, Shakir, excuse me, with that consistency, with everyone knowing their roles, with everyone knowing those are the big dogs who the offense funnels through, I think this could take the offense to a completely other level than it was at last year when it was like, let's ride whoever the hot hand is.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get performances like you got from Palmer and Coleman last night, with Shakir still on the mend, by the way, still second on the team in catches with 6 for 64, almost an identical stat line to what he had in the playoff game, actually, too, for Shakir. And he's probably still not quite 100% yet either, but did make some plays for Josh Allen, obviously coming back for that one. And then the one where Josh kind of shovel passed it to him, and he looked to me like he got the first down. The spots were bad all night. We'll go get into that later, but there is a chance for what has kind of been the storyline or the talking points going into the summer and into training camp about Keon Coleman taking a step up, Josh Palmer being the kind of guy they need as a separator to go along with Shakir, and hoping that Kincaid can bounce back from an injury-plagued 2024. Like, the things can all align, then this offense certainly has a higher potential from a consistency standpoint, I would say, from the weapons than they did a year ago, where at times they had to rely on Matt Collins, right? Or they had to rely on a rookie Keon Coleman who was battling injury, right? So it has potential. I certainly think, like we said in the training camp previews and throughout, like the wide receiver group has a chance to be better than it was a year ago. And at least through one game, it showed, right? It did show. So,
yeah, taking a look at Keon Coleman a little bit more in depth, he had 8 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. I really liked the breakdown from John Scott on X. The last 10 times, Keon had 10 targets in the fourth quarter. 10 targets in the fourth quarter. That's crazy, right? He had a 15 on those 10 targets. He had a 15-yard catch. Then there was an incompletion, then a 9-yard catch, then a 21-yard catch, that big one down the sideline, 7-yard catch. He drew a DPI, a 10-yard touchdown catch, game-saving play, catching that ball off the tip. Then on the next series, he had the jump ball 2-point conversion that failed. I would have liked to have seen him extend his arms a little bit more, but at the same time, he also was getting pretty well held by Nate Wiggins there. It was uncalled. Then he had an 8-yard catch and then the 25-yard catch to seal it. So when Josh Allen was in need of a receiver in this game, 95% of the time he was looking in Keon Coleman's direction. And I think a lot of that has to do with Keon Coleman's off-script ability. Like Eric Turner was talking about it on social media today. Like, he just doesn't quit on plays. And Josh, a guy who likes to create things off structure, this is almost the perfect wide receiver for him, because Keon Coleman's never given up on a play. Keon Coleman's going to keep moving. He's going to keep readjusting. And the two of them can create ability off script, out of structure. There's no defending that, because like, you can't cover what a quarterback and a receiver are kind of drawing up on the fly. There's no covering that.
Yeah. And the fact is, it's like you can have a guy that's like that, but if he doesn't kind of match up with the body style, like that Coleman has, like that combination of his body style and him not giving up on plays really works well for Josh Allen as well, right? He doesn't necessarily need an off-script guy that can burn down the field. He needs an off-script guy that can get open and use his body and use his size to kind of put himself in position to really go most of the time towards the sidelines, right? That's kind of where Josh is kind of making most of these off-script plays. It's not necessarily over the top, if you will, but it's more to the boundary. So, and Coleman fits that from a physical stature standpoint perfectly. And, you know, he had the one drop early, but really like that, he put that out of his mind, and it was kind of on a wide receiver screenish type of play, which is not really something you probably want to do with him anyway. But the rest of the game, man, his hands were as sure as they can be, and he really stepped up. Big game for him.
Yeah, I'm sure there were some people on social media when he dropped that screen that fired off some tweets, and that looked a little bad for those people. Some old takes exposed, I am sure. Josh Palmer, he was brought to Buffalo. Some people maybe question that contract, but his man separator skills are on display. He was brought here to be a man separator. He caught 5 balls for 61 yards. Our guy Adam Pencil said he was a PI away from a 100-yard game. Maybe I'm blanking on something. Maybe there was like a pass interference or a hold or something that prevented him from getting a big chunk play. I don't remember that.
There was the one down to the right corner, like right short of the end zone. It wasn't 40 yards though.
Okay.
I mean, it was probably like 20, 25 yards. So he wouldn't have had.
But if you add to that, Allen missing him open in the end zone, combination of those two probably would have put him over 100, because he got that separation, and him and Josh are still working on that timing on that go route, and he just missed him in the back corner of the end zone there for what would have been a touchdown. So yeah, Josh Palmer showing his separation skills. You have Khalil Shakir, 6 for 64. Like, these guys are, like I said, formulating this big three at wide receiver, and Eric Turner today, again, breaking down that all 22. There was a number of plays where Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer were able to get the ball because they were covering Khalil Shakir in a certain way, and they were drawn to Khalil Shakir in a certain way. So the threat of Shakir, who still ate himself with 6 for 64, was opening things up for other guys as well. So honestly, two solid boundary guys, if they can stay healthy, in Palmer and Coleman, and a slot guy in Shakir, I love the consistency. I love it.
Yeah, Elijah Moore, the one play, and then Curtis Samuel kind of is like the forgotten man here. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, and Shakir's only going to get healthier too, right? I think you kind of maybe get the sense that he wasn't quite 100%, and that'll get better. Keon looked no worse for the wear with that groin flare up that he had during practice this week. So that was obviously something that maybe we forgot about, but going back to it, like, man, it's a good thing he wasn't
groin looked good to me, man.
Injury. Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid, 4 for 48 and a touchdown, getting after it in the run game. Him pancaking that guy out of bounds on the first drive was incredible to see. I mean, how underrated was that big catch by him with 1 second left to set up that field goal at the end of the half? Again, that situational football. Sean McDermott, Josh Allen, they played it perfectly. Dalton Kincaid made that big catch. Might have been his best game as a Buffalo, not statistically, but just from an overall impact standpoint, that might have been Dalton Kincaid's best game as a Buffalo Bill.
And it was early that he set the tone too, right? And that's what I liked. I think he was involved quite early, and then like kind of, I wouldn't say he disappeared for a bit because, Josh was spreading it out. They had a couple of those 3 and outs. But that play before the end of the half, then he had another play late in the game, right, to get a first down as well. And there was the other play where he kind of, I would say he kind of sold it a bit, where he was blocking up the field and kind of got flipped over a bit. Was that Roquan Smith that he was tangling up with? I can't remember if it was him or Trenton Simpson. I think it was Roquan. But it was just nice to see the attitude, right, and the toughness there from Kincaid. And he looked healthy to me, which is obviously huge. And if he can become, a guy that for certain weeks is the dude who leads the way from a receiving standpoint, I think that would be great as well. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing, right? Is I think kind of going back to what the philosophy was last year with it, everybody eats, and ended up being Shakir essentially most weeks. You really could have a situation this year where, like, this week it was Coleman, maybe next week it's Kincaid, maybe the week after it's Shakir, and the Bills should have some flexibility there and being a bit unpredictable, I think, too, and how they want to attack. So, kudos to Kincaid for coming out and kind of, box score wise, people might look at me like, hey, wasn't that great, but really it was to me. I thought it was a really good game for him.
We had this conversation on the pregame show. Who would get the most snaps out of these 3? Jackson Hawes, Reggie Gilliam, Alec Anderson. I think we both chose Jackson Hawes, and that was the correct answer.
I chose Gilliam, but he wasn't too far.
You were close. He wasn't too far off. But Jackson Hawes, to me, he's the 6th new offensive lineman. Why? Because he can get after it just like an offensive lineman, and he's got that receiving upside. He was my wild card player of the game, and I said, I don't even think he's going to have a catch. He's just going to ooze freaking that dog. He's going to ooze dog all over the field. And what do? He oozed dog all over the field, and he made a catch. One of the biggest catches of the game on that seam ball in the 4th quarter. So when he caught it, I thought it was Dawson Knox. And I'm like, wait a second, that's not Dawson Knox. Holy crap, that's Jackson Hawes. The guy had a huge impact on the game. The Buffalo, like I said this when he was drafted.
Dog. That's going to be a new phrase, I think, for you.
I'm going to say it a lot. Maybe I'll try to make it sound better than that, but like,
I like it.
When we drafted him, I'll have to get that clip back up. I don't think that's copyrighted. Dog. I don't think that's. I'll get it back. Every time we talk about Jackson Hawes, I'll just play that little video because I don't think that's copyrighted. Anyway, that's a throwback to anyone who's ever seen. It used to be our intro. We literally paid that man $20 from his college dorm to do us an intro where he just kept saying "dog." But
he oozes dog. That's good.
Maybe I could find his Twitter again and have him cut up another promo for us. But literally, when he was drafted, Jackson Dogs. Yes, there it is. Jackson Dogs. But literally, when he was drafted, I was like, how did this guy make it to the 5th round? Like, when we were having our pre-draft conversations, I said, I think this guy could be a day 2 pick for his blocking ability alone. And here we are, and he is just
no matter what tight end.
Like just absolutely getting after it, right? In the pass blocking game. So what a benefit he's going to be to this offense. Over time, he can probably develop into that TE2 role as Dawson Knox phases out. But even Dawson Knox had a good game, right? People will argue he makes too much money, but at this point, it is what it is. So just enjoy what's on the field. And those three tight ends worked really well in combination together. So to me, really excited about the future of Jackson Haas. Probably spent a little bit too much time on Jackson Haas just now, but hey, we're excited here.
We're excited. Might have to go back to the No Matter What show and clip the Jackson Haas thing.
There we go.
And put that out there again, just because it looks like a good take at this point. So
every once in a while we have good ones, but we got to clip it and we got to let the people know. The only negative takeaway I have is a clunky early game plan. They were really dependent on the run. There's a lot of short stuff like screen passes and things of that nature. It's throwing the ball short of the sticks on third down. It seemed like they really wanted to control time of possession to keep the Bills defense off the field a little bit. And for those people who want to blame Joe Brady, it was pretty clear that Josh Allen was checking into a lot of those calls. So you there's blame to go around. It's not just Joe Brady. Josh Allen was checking into those calls. It almost looked like he was really worried about the pass rush. But what happened was, and the Ravens getting out to a big lead kind of forced the Bills' hands, and they switched to this like 2-minute offense where Josh Allen was just dropping back and slinging it. When the game dictated that change, I think Josh Allen realized after like a series or two, this Baltimore Ravens defensive line, at least from a pass rush perspective, seems to be a sheep in wolf's clothing. Like they were not getting home in terms of pressuring the quarterback. Josh Allen had all day to sit back there and make some throws. Did he maneuver the pocket well? Yes, there was a couple of instances where Kyle Van Noy came in for some of his like shadow blitzes, but and Josh Allen knew it was coming because they game planned for it, and he was able to veer out of it. But for the most part, I think the worry or the anxiety Josh Allen might have had about that Baltimore pass rush quickly was alleviated, and he was just peppering the ball over the field in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned it well too, right? He did move well in the pocket. He had a good sense of awareness of where he had space, and even kind of stepped through in some tight spaces at times as well. Got out of the pocket early when he needed to, and yes, the pass rush maybe wasn't quite where Baltimore wanted it to be, but I also think Josh Allen's just sense and awareness in the pocket was at just another level last night too. He just kind of knew when he needed to run, when he needed to kind of move around, either step up or step out to the sides, and he did a great job of that. So only took the 1 sack for 5 yards.
All right, let's shift our attention now to the Buffalo Bills defense. Obviously, we talked a lot of negatives to start. 238 yards allowed, 40 points. They scored on their 7 of their first 8 possessions. The Bills defense had the lowest EPA per play of any unit this week. The next closest was Baltimore and Kansas City, if that makes anyone feel any better. They were in this early. They were in this one high look where it was like a 6-1 look where they had 6 guys stretched across the line of scrimmage with just one safety deep, and the Ravens absolutely gashed it, leaving that one safety out to dry. They switched to a 2 deep. The Ravens still gashed it, and the safety still took poor angles. And Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson were just running for days and days and days. I think some of the lowlights of this game were Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop. It's concerning. First of all, it's concerning that so many plays got to the second level. That's number one, and we can have that conversation, but their angles were terrible all night. Like, people want to complain about Damar Hamlin's angles last night. Watch Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop in this game. It was something awful. So, again, unicorn opponent, maybe that changes when it's not a 250-pound guy barreling down at you, and it's not Lamar Jackson and his type of agility barreling down at you, but we'll get to the positives. Anything else you want to pile onto this defense?
I mean, we piled on a bit already, and you mentioned it in your one big thing. To me, like, not getting hands on Henry until he's already in the second level is a problem, right? And I do think as well, just point this out, the Ravens were, and I think a couple people mentioned this as well in the comments, and the film cut up showed this as well. They were snapping the ball quickly on many occasions, not allowing the Bills to kind of get into their sort of pre-snap disguises. And I think it caught the Bills off guard on multiple occasions, especially for guys like Bishop and Rapp, where they were kind of either flat-footed or on their heels, kind of going back to their spots and then having to suddenly change direction and move forward, it really didn't work well for them. So I do think that's going to be something that should be a focus for the Bills in practice this week. Maybe a little bit more urgency in getting into your pre-snap, spots. And then, I do think some of the angles, obviously, we knew going into this season, not just this game, that safety was a huge question mark. But at the end of the day, I'm going to hope that maybe less so for Taylor Rapp because he's a veteran and he's been around. But for a guy like Cole Bishop, who doesn't have a ton of in-game reps, to get thrown into the fire like this game starting week 1 after being injured and coming back, getting back up to speed, it was a tough ask, right, for him. But him having these reps in this game, I think hopefully in the end becomes a net positive for him. But I think I don't want to pile on too much more because we've already kind of set our piece on that.
Looking at some positives, I mean, there are some positives to go around. I think Eric and Anth had done a good job today of highlighting some of the positives that Bernard and Benford had, in some of the plays where we did have good run support. And I think as the defense around those guys gets better, they'll get their shine. Dorian Strong, according to Next Gen Stats, had 0 receptions allowed. And that penalty on him was kind of iffy. So some areas where we can give the Buffalo Bills flowers, Ed Oliver. Bobby Babbage said it was one of the best games of his career. 6 tackles, 4 run stops, 3 tackles for losses, 3 pressures, 1 sack, the game-changing forced fumble, a quarterback hurry, and a QB hit. That was the Ed Oliver that we all wanted when he was drafted. That was probably the best game of his career, college or pro. The real Ed Oliver hopefully came out last night, and hopefully we get that a lot more from him. And we'll get to Joey Bosa in a minute. I think Joey Bosa made Ed Oliver the best version of himself, but we'll get to that. What are your thoughts on Ed Oliver?
I mean, it's always been the thing with Ed Oliver is he's always been, I would say, an above average player. And at times when he has games like this, he looks elite. The thing with him is just hasn't been super consistent. He hasn't gotten to the point where and no one is, right? Like he's not at the point yet where he's having elite weeks and stacking them to where he can be put in the same conversation as guys like, Chris Jones. And I understand Chris Jones is a unicorn in himself, but like in that conversation, he is one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL. And this is maybe his best game he's ever had. Single-handedly pretty much kept the Bills in this game with his forced fumble, right, on Henry. And so very happy for Ed. I think it bodes well as well for him to do this against the opponent that he did it against, the Ravens. It wasn't against like a subpar opponent where at times in the past he's had really good games against kind of subpar teams. Having a really good game against a really good offensive line and a tough opponent like the Ravens hopefully spells good things for him for the rest of this season. But great game for him.
Joey Bosa, I know I got on him early. I know a lot of people got him early because he took some really bad angles. When you're playing Lamar Jackson, you can't be biting as much as he did on some of the RPOs and things like he did. But as the game progressed, man, when we start to play offenses that aren't the Baltimore Ravens, you could tell Joey Bosa, dude, he still got the juice. Like he's still there. He really helped generate a pass rush. It was different than the pass rush that Von Miller generated. It wasn't him trying to like go wide and get the quarterback, from behind. It was just bulling through people and getting through people. And I really do think that having Joey Bosa next to him made Ed Oliver the best version of himself. And I think Joey Bosa is gonna help bring out the best in Ed Oliver this year. So I think Gruden will come along. I think Bosa will come along. I think Oliver will come along. Like I'm not worried about those 3 on this defensive line rotation. I'm just literally worried about everyone else on this defensive line rotation. We have time. We'll see who steps up and who doesn't. And then we have the reinforcements coming in week 7 in Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi. So we'll see how it plays out over the next 6 weeks. But those 3 guys, really confident in those 3 with the going into a normal schedule against normal offenses.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tall order to play that sort of read option anyway against Lamar, and probably not really Joey Bosa's strength anyway to begin with. But he got better as the game went on.
See ball, get ball. See ball, get ball.
Yeah. he got better. He got better as the game went on.
He's like Danny Bateman in The Replacements. Go
yes.
get the ball. Go get the ball. Okay. All right.
Yes. And the rookies I thought did okay. Walker, other than the on the field goal, man, that could have been really brutal for him. I think had some decent moments as well. So look, again, keeping in context of the opponent, keeping in context that week 1 is always a little weird in the NFL. Some promising individual efforts, I would say, from some of the guys on the defense. And yeah, you mentioned Dorian Strong. Now, granted, the Ravens didn't really throw
Barely
much
threw the
other
ball.
than to say Flowers. Like
He
other than
shut
that,
Rashad Bateman down.
like yes. But you know what? We'll take it, and it's still good reps for him. And so yeah, we'll have a glimmer of a silver lining here for some of these guys.
And here's what I will say about the defense, right? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. After scoring 40 points on 8 drives and gaining 410 yards of total offense on those drives, the defense ended with 3 and out and a punt, 2 plays in that forced fumble by Oliver, and then a 3 and out and a punt. So the last 3 drives, 2 punts and a turnover. And I'll tell you what, man. Let's just take like let's put a brief pause on the talk here and just talk about how effing dumb John Harbaugh is. How do you not go for it on 4th and 3? You have 3 timeouts, dude. Like you're going against Josh Allen. Who cares where you give him the ball? Like you got 3 timeouts and you got Lamar and Henry who probably could do some things. Like how do you not go for it on the 4th? So, because I know you mentioned you only saw Lamar's comments. You're like, oh, Lamar said he was cramping. That's why they didn't go for it. But John Harbaugh was like literally at the podium. Was like, I no, that it never crossed my mind to go for it.
Yeah, but that's
what
I get it. I in one way I'm like, yes, it's on the 40, but also like you said, you had all timeouts, and also you were up by 2, right? So it's like even if the Bills get a field goal, you just need a field goal to then win.
Yeah,
if you're the Ravens. So like to me, you were averaging almost 10 yards a carry running the ball with Derrick. Like I would trust that at my own 40 over like giving the ball back to Josh Allen. I mean, like, I don't know. That was a weird decision by Jim Harbaugh. I know some of Jim Harbaugh's like statistics over his career as far as giving up double-digit leads are not great, are not favorable. I don't remember the exact number, but I know he's like got one of like the highest like double-digit lead, like giving up double-digit lead rates of coaches. But that to me,
it's like if Brennan,
I understand everyone's like, oh, it was on his own. Like I get that, but like, did you not see what they were doing to this defense all night? Like,
it's like if Brennan Staley had like 12 years of coaching on his resume, that's how many big losses John Harbaugh has in his career. It is quite a concerning number. All right, let's get to it here as we sort of close out the show a little bit around the NFL. Obviously, I mentioned at the top, the Bills are number 1 in the AFC East. Everyone else is 0-1. Justin Fields and the Jets looked good. I mean, that run and screen game looked good. It looked like there was a complete culture shift and attitude shift. We'll get to a little bit in the preview, but that defense did get torched by Aaron Rodgers, who was an absolute non-factor out of the pocket. So bodes well for the Bills offense next week. But, the rest of the AFC East 0-1, the Chiefs 0-1, the Ravens 0-1. What are your thoughts from around the league this week? As J.J. McCarthy apparently is not him.
No, he looks terrible. Look, I think week 1's always weird, right? And yes, every year we say don't overreact to week 1 because it's not necessarily indicative of how the rest of the season will play out. But some interesting things, I think, around week 1. I thought Justin Fields did a good job, like you said, for the Jets against the Steelers. I thought the Raiders, albeit against the Patriots team, I thought their defense and it looked pretty good. And I thought Geno largely looked pretty good. The Patriots, I thought, didn't do as well as I thought they were going to do against that Raiders defense. I thought their offense looked very, very stagnant. They didn't force the ball down the field whatsoever. And then we obviously go back to the Friday game between the Chargers and the Chiefs. And, the Chiefs, Xavier Worthy may be out for some time. We know Rashee Rice is going to be out for the next 5 games since he's already missed the first game. And the Chargers could be a team now that all of a sudden kind of makes their makes their claim to being one of the top teams in the AFC. I thought the Bengals didn't really look too good against the Browns. The Broncos didn't really look good in a win against the scrappy Titans team. The AFC looks a little interesting after 1 week. So let's see how the next couple of weeks play out. But certainly, as always, a very interesting week 1 in the NFL.
Yeah, the Chargers look like a force. So that'll be interesting to see how they progress over the course of the season as well. Ralph Wilson Sr. says, "Did Diggs play?" Yeah, Diggs played. He's
Non-factor
coming back. Yeah, coming back from that injury. I don't think he'll be much of a factor, at least the first half.
The passing game for the Patriots looked brutal. I mean, it was bad. So
Brock Bowers, dude, dog.
Yeah, he's bad.
And they finally got Michael Mayer involved a little bit too. Watching that game, I was watching Red Zone.
Yeah, I liked Michael Mayer when they drafted him. So I was like,
I know.
That's...
But do you see like the split? Like when Michael Mayer was on the field, it was like 75% runs, and then when Brock Bowers was on the field, they never ran the ball once with Brock Bowers on the field.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, right? They like Pete Carroll at his time in Seattle, like they really didn't have like a singular tight end that they used exclusively, right? It was always like, who was it? It was like they had Fant, and they had like what was it, Disley for a couple of those years in there. Like they just always kind of like they always kind of just let the formation and personnel, and they didn't really care too much about the tight end production.
How about the Dolphins and how bad they are? Like, so
your Colts, your AFC wildcard Colts, or AFC South champ Colts look pretty good.
But I'll tell you what, like it was Xavier Howard was making some comments in the post game, like, listen, if you take away his first read, Tua can't do jack shit. Like, and it looked like that. He looked terrible. Mike McDaniel looked like he had no control over that football team. Their offensive line was a train wreck when we've been saying for how many years that this team needs to address offensive line, that they need to add tight ends, that they need to be able to get multiple and to be able to come out in some jumbo packages to be able to have some type of variety. They can't just be all speed. You have Tyreek Hill having temper tantrums on the sideline. You have that defense just getting absolutely roasted up and down the field because they have no secondary. Like, that team's bad. Like, I made the prediction earlier this offseason. I don't think by the time the Bills play the Dolphins the second time around, it's after the Dolphins bye week. I think Mike McDaniel's fired. Like, I think they have a different head coach, an interim head coach, when they play the Buffalo Bills for the second time. So, hopefully they don't get that. What do they call it? The dead dog. What do they call that thing? The bump when you fire your head coach. Hopefully they don't get that dead cat bounce, because I don't think Mike McDaniel's gonna be coaching the second time the Bills play him.
I hope he is, just because it would be just great to see that dumpster fire continue for even longer. But
yeah. All right. Let's quickly take a look at the New York Jets, as I sort of already mentioned at the top of the show, or not at the top of the show, at the top of this Around the NFL segment. Justin Fields and the Jets. Listen, like, the Bills have some work to do this week in the film room, and that is because Justin Fields started looking a little bit like Ohio State Justin Fields. He looked comfortable. He was throwing the ball downfield. He wasn't just, dinking and dunking and running. They unleashed him. They let him go a little bit. They finally just gave the ball to Breece Hall and let Breece Hall be Breece Hall, which is something that the New York Jets were like allergic to the last 2 years. And, I drafted Braylon Allen in a couple of my fantasy drafts because everyone's like, Braylon Allen's going to usurp Breece Hall. No, he's not. Like, he'll be a nice little change of pace, but Breece Hall is a freaking dude.
Breece Hall looks good.
He's a freaking dude. And Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur and all them, they just never seem to realize that. But Aaron Glenn does. And they were feeding him the rock, and he's going to be a problem next week. And Garrett Wilson is a dude. So there are some weapons on that offense. They're going to run the ball down your throat. They're going to be able to run with their quarterback and create some things off script. They have a legitimate wide receiver number one who is going to get 10 targets, and you're going to have to figure out how to stop him. So there's some things the Buffalo Bills need to work on. I thought the Jets had a complete culture and attitude change. They were getting snippy. They were fighting a little bit. They weren't taking any from anybody, even though they lost. But the one thing I will hang my hat on is that defense was getting torched by a 100-year-old man who looked like he should be playing from a walker. Like, I know he threw 4 touchdowns and had all those yards. Like, he looked sickly out there. I don't know how he threw 4 touchdowns. Like that was scheme, and like I don't like. How'd you not sack Aaron Rodgers 15 times, dude? The guy couldn't move. So I would pump the brakes on the Aaron Rodgers love for a couple of weeks. That was a really bad defensive performance from the Jets. They everything around Aaron Rodgers was absolute perfection for him to look like that, in my humble opinion. So I think that's something the Bills can really take advantage of next week. So even if the Jets offense does get its licks in on the Buffalo Bills and score some points, I fully expect this offense to go absolute nuclear on that defense if they perform the way they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, in Fields and Brees and Garrett Wilson, that could kind of be like what the Ravens had this week with Lamar and Derrick Henry, obviously a different style, and Zay Flowers, right? Like the Bills, I think, got a good prep for what could be not as good as the Ravens, but an offense that could try to operate similarly, like running the ball with Brees Hall, letting Justin Fields use his legs, having a sort of a low volume passing game, but kind of feeding it to Garrett Wilson. There's a chance for the Jets to kind of, again, if the Bills can't figure some things out on defense, the Jets have a pretty good chance to score some points on the Bills, especially because the Steelers, again, to their credit as well, we're going into the season with a good defensive roster as well. Some would argue better than the Bills' defensive roster, and the Jets put up 30 plus on them. So I do think the Bills are going to have a little bit of their hands full with that Jets personnel. But you're right, on the defensive side of the ball for the Jets, like the Bills really should be able to score, almost at will, or at least put up close to 30 or more points against that defense.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. My one final thought here, there's a statistic I meant to share, and I haven't shared it yet, but hey, I was a Buffalo Bills season ticket holder for 10 years in the drought era. I watched Kelly Holcomb and JP Lossman and Jeff Toole and AJ Manuel and Kyle Orton, like Drew Bledsoe. Like Bledsoe was kind of fun, but like Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was kind of fun. He had his days. Like we had to watch so much garbage and we had to watch so many losses. The Buffalo Bills at Highmark Stadium since the beginning of 2022 are 23-2, and they average 32 points per game. Absolutely incredible what they are doing. And that, do we want to leave? Are we sure we want to leave?
Are we sure? But they're keeping the name Highmark Stadium, so that's good, right?
Are we sure we want to leave? 23-2, 32 points per game. So yeah, absolutely incredible. I forgot Trent Edwards, by the way. How could I forget Trent Edwards in that laundry list? That myriad of
corners. What about
Ryan Braun? I think his only game was in the Meadowlands. I saw Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley was just a garbage game while in this current regime.
Who was it? It wasn't Cardell Jones. Who was the other guy we had that played in that Bengals game?
Josh Johnson?
No, that wasn't him. It was like during the Rex Ryan days, I think.
So there was Tyrod, there was Josh Johnson, there was Cardell, there was EJ. I don't think there was anyone else. Do you?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe it was Cardell. Maybe I'm thinking of Cardell.
And it's always the Meadowlands, man. I feel like Brian Braum got his one start in New York, and I feel because we always play them like in New York in the last week of the season, except for this year. Yeah. And I feel like Brian Braum's one game was in the Meadowlands. I was so pumped for that Brian Braum start, dude, and he just shit the bed. He was so.
He was so bad. Yeah.
23-2, 32 points per game. That's what the moral of the story is. Let's all be grateful. AJ McCarron. I don't know if that was. Did AJ McCarron? I mean, that was preseason. I don't know if he ever started a regular season game.
What about Kyle Orton, Kevin Cobb,
Uncle Rico, Kevin Cobb? There we go. I don't know, Nathan Peter.
Yeah.
Derek Anderson. Derek Anderson. Who was the quarterback? Who was the quarterback in the legendary 6-3 game where we lost because Roscoe Ferris pummeled the punt return? Jabron Hamden.
Yes.
Thad Lewis. I think you're thinking of Thad Lewis.
Thad. That's what I'm thinking of.
Thad was
Thad Lewis.
That was a fucking vibe though. Like that was a vibe.
That was a vibe. That's what I was thinking of.
Jeff Toole wishes he was Thad Lewis. Like that's he was a vibe. Like yes. I think he's a quarterbacks coach of the Buccaneers now. I think he's he's coaching somewhere. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. If you're looking to support the show, there are 3 things that you can do. Number 1, you can smash that like button. Always appreciated. Helps us with the algorithm and all that good stuff. Second is you can click the share button and you could share this on socials or text it to friends, family, anyone who you think would enjoy being a part of this conversation we have every Monday night and every Buffalo Bills pregame. And then last but not least, once this is done, the show is done being live. Come back to the comment section and leave a comment on the video. It can be anything you want. It can be a comment. It can be a criticism. It can be a go Bills. It can be a cheers, whatever. Again, helps us drive that algorithm. We don't like to have clickbaity titles or to throw temper tantrums during the middle of shows or anything like that to try to get your attention, right? This isn't ESPN. So the only way really to feed the beast of the algorithm is to have likes and to have shares and to have comments. So if you guys can do that for us, it would be greatly appreciated. Dave, any final thoughts before we get out of here this evening?
No, I think great way to end the football Sunday yesterday with that win. And we're, the Meadowlands is always a tough game for the Bills. So we'll get to all that in the pregame show week 2. Should be one of the more exciting games on the slate, to be honest, for week 2. So looking forward to it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Always appreciated. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!